What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Reformed Movie Nerd. I'm your host, the Reformed Movie Nerd, also known as Brojo, being joined by Joshua Gwynn, Alec, and Baptist, giving you a Christian take on the films you love and the characters you enjoy. This week on the Reformed Movie Nerd, we will be discussing Reformed movie news. We will be doing a skit called Buy or Sell. Here's how this works. We are going to go through a list of the recent topics that have come up in the world of movies, discuss whether or not we buy or sell them. We are going to be starting with the It Chapter 2 trailer. Because here's the synopsis. Every 27 years, evil resists the town of Derry, Maine. It Chapter 2 brings the characters who've long since gone their separate ways back together as adults, nearly 3 decades after the events of the first film. Josh, what did you think about the trailer for It 2?
Well, after watching it this second time, I was kind of amazed for a horror movie. I'm not as big a fan as I used to for various reasons, but wow, I think if it's anywhere as good as the trailer, I definitely buy it.
Yeah, I agree. And because I hadn't seen the trailer until you told me, and I saw it right now, and it was amazing. I saw the first movie. I don't usually watch a lot of horror movies, and I watched the first one, and I was like pleasantly surprised. Like I really liked it, and this trailer was amazing. Like I just loved how that scene started, and then
and you know, well, so I'm going to buy it only for this reason. So actually, when I grew up, my sister would play. I mean, when we would hang out, it would just be horror film after horror film after horror film, and I would say like, "Hey, can we watch another film genre? It's 9:00 at night. We've been watching horror all day. I don't want to go to sleep with a horror film." And we just continually watch them. And so I kind of have horror film genre fatigue. And after I saw the first It, because I heard people talking about it, and I saw the kid from Stranger Things in it, Finn Wolfhard, I was like, man, I have to see this film, and loved it. Not because of aspect, or because of that friendly or the friend aspect, or the aspect of these kids that were growing up together, and it reminded me when I was growing up with my friends how we hung out, and so I really love that aspect to the film. As for the second trailer, I have a few problems with it. It almost feels like the beginning. I got that very generic horror film kind of genre stuff. Those really over the top lines where Mrs. Marsh, I believe, or Miss Kirshner, I think is her name. She's talking about no one really dies forever in this town. Just these over the top lines that are like, this is so unrealistic. And I'm thinking, oh, please don't give me generic horror movie stuff. But I buy it. Baptist, what are your thoughts on the first movie?
Well, I hate to do this to y'all, but I haven't seen either.
Okay.
What I've had to learn over the years was that by virtue of, I would say, the spiritual aspects behind horror films, I learned it's just best for me to simply keep the door shut and stuff.
Got it. Josh,
what's that?
So, Josh, did you get that kind of generic horror film vibe from the trailer?
Well, I kind of did the first time. Just a little background. I used to be a huge horror fan, like really big. Not, like going to a Comic-Con type over the top big, but I used to be a pretty big horror fan, and I read a lot of horror novels, and so but kind of like what Baptist said, I don't do it as much, but I've been studying a lot of the occult from a Christian perspective, Christian worldview, and spiritism, and so forth and so on. So some things I will watch now to see what the culture is into, and see how I can relate to them. So on the second time, to answer your question, yes and no. The subtle acting of the main lead, the female lead, was great. the way that her body language was, the subtlety of her responses, was good. I hope they don't make it cheesy. There were times where It One was a little too cheesy for me. I remember watching the original one, and I read most of the book as a young man. So I really liked aspects of the first movie, but then I think that they got a little
carried away.
Yeah, a little junk food.
Are they following the book strictly? Because I haven't read the books or seen the original series, so I'm just kind of curious. Like,
yeah. So it's they're taking it's kind of like what Marvel does. They're taking the general themes and stories and a lot of referencing of the story.
Yeah.
Because this is the end of their movie franchise, what they're going to do with it, unless they're going to do spin-off films. But
because why is it chapter 2?
The regular book is about over 1,000 pages long.
Yeah, it's huge.
If you listen to the audio book, I mean, I think it's a 20-hour listen, so they can no way you could translate all that over, so they have to condense it. Get on to our second topic. It will be Spider-Man Far From Home trailer. Following the events of Avengers Endgame, Spider-Man must step up and threats in a world that has changed forever. I'm going to buy the trailer. I absolutely love the trailer. I didn't think it was as good as the first trailer. It didn't have that really personal. My favorite aspect of Spider-Man is the very close to home kind of feel. I love the Spider-Man animated series from the 90s because everything was done within the city and there weren't these crazy over-the-top stakes every episode. And this trailer kind of gives that feel. But I love Nick Fury in it. I love Tom Holland as Spider-Man, and Mysterio looks really cool. So I bought.
I would say in regards to the whole issue of Spider-Man Far From Home, well, I'm glad. One of the things I think could be potentially good or potentially beneficial to the MCU is the multiverse theory. How they've opened the door for the idea that of course, in Doctor Strange, the idea was stated by the Ancient One, but one of the things I definitely like about what seems to be talked about in the movie is that multiverse. That Earth, there's Earth 616, according to, or they're taking a little bit from the comic book references and sort of putting it into Spider, and now they're implementing it more into the MCU.
Right. So do you buy?
I would say buy it.
Buy it. Awesome. Alec, what are your thoughts?
I'm gonna sell the trailer.
You're gonna sell it?
Yeah, I mean the trailer was not as good as the first one, and I feel like it kind of showed a little bit too much. And I feel like Sony kind of always does that with the Spider-Man movies. They always show too much in the trailers, and it didn't get me more excited than I already was. Like I was already pretty excited, and the only thing that like I really liked is like at the beginning, like the beginning part of the trailer when he's talking about Tony. Yeah. But other than that, like everything else was just like all right to me.
I guess I can see your point. I mean, we are 2 months out from the film, and they're releasing 2 trailers. They have now released from the film, and so Sony, I feel like it's like it's a child with a toy box, just picks everything, throws everything into a trailer. I mean, it's like you're right. The one of the problems with the trailer is that you do feel like, okay, I'm looking at all the aspects of the movie play out here, and that's a little problematic. Josh, did you buy it or sell it?
If I had a third choice, I would say neither. But I'm leaning kind of towards what Alex said, right? I mean, I'm already hyped for the movie. I've told you before that I'm a big Spider-Man fan. So, and I love what, Tom Holland's doing. I like the direction that this series is going in. Okay, so I have to choose. I have to say buy it, but barely. Not because it's horrible, but for some of the same reasons Alex said. Like the first trailer is all I needed to see, and I'm there. I mean, I was there anyway, but after seeing the first trailer, I'm like, okay, this is going to, I think it'd be a good film. There's aspects in the second trailer I thought was neat. Like you was saying, you know, it gives you like a little down to earth feel that they do with Spider-Man, you know, back to the real world, so to speak. But then after seeing that one clip, like Baptist said, I think that's going to be really interesting as well.
Yeah, it's kind of hard because the second trailer really should be getting at the naysayers, the people that are still saying, I'm not going to go see this film, but they're really trying to gauge, you know, the wider audience. First trailer is really for the fans, and second trailer is really for people who weren't convinced. I definitely see the point. I mean, who wasn't convinced after the first trailer? Or is there anything else we needed to see? You're right. It goes into way too much stuff with MJ. I didn't like that she talked about, I know you're Spider-Man. Like, even if that's not, even if that's even if that's a mislead, that should be something we see in the film. Like, that's not, we don't want to see the whole story unfold. So I can see you guys. Well, I barely bought it yet. So I definitely agree with that. And the multiverse element is interesting because is Mysterio lying? Are they just throwing that in so people get excited, but they don't really introduce it? Marvel does that sometimes, so I'm not sure.
Considering that again, the Ancient One also brought this up, and we don't see any reason to think that she's necessarily lying about that.
Yeah, she's super serious. I mean, if you know, she's overly serious character, obviously for for reasons that fit her character.
So for her to bring the idea of the moment, even if she may have said it sort of like a passing piece of information to Doctor Strange, you know, the fact of the matter is, I don't see any reason to think that she would necessarily be wrong about that.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people are, and again, this is just a kind of a rumor, so to speak, but that Kong the Conqueror is going to be the big bad guy of the next, villain of the next phase. I could see that, but we'll have to see.
I see what you're talking. Right.
Yeah. We'll have to see how they. I mean, they really set it up, right? I mean, because did Cap really close all the little timelines? I mean, things was changed. It was a different timeline. There's a couple different ones, really, if you look at it.
So, do you guys buy Mysterio? Have they sold you on him being because Mysterio is one of those villains that you see in the cartoon?
He's a bad guy. He's a straight up bad guy. Like I could see it right through him. Like when he's like,
he's the biggest liar, like you said, Alec, in the comic books. He's just this is what he does. He's like a showman.
He's a fraud.
He's a fraud, man.
Oh, I've seen this theory where they're saying that he could be Peter Parker from another timeline, and I thought that was pretty interesting.
I guess, because Tom Holland and Jake Gyllenhaal, not strong resemblance, but they do have some sort of
that would be kind of cool. Like I don't know.
Yeah. It's kind of. What do you guys think about his costume? Because if you remember the costume from the comics, the cartoons, a little cheesy. I mean, really, I think his costume is more cheesy than like a Green Goblin, and I think they've done a good job translating. Director John Watts was talking about when they were trying to figure out the suit for Mysterio, because one of the reasons they never really did this villain was because they just didn't know how to translate that kind of costume. They said, this is a ridiculous costume. How are we going to get that over to like live action without really upsetting the fans? And I think they did a good job with Mysterio.
I think they did too. Look at the if you're familiar somewhat, any of you fellas, with Sinister Six and the different iterations of it. Yeah, I mean, there were times where they really did Mysterio. He was pretty tough. Okay, his costume looked pretty sweet, but a lot of his costumes, even in the comic books, are pretty corny. So
yeah. For sure.
All right, let's move on to topic number 4. Which
do we even get to?
Was it 4 or 3?
Oh, sorry. Topic number 3. Sorry, I put the numbers kind of weird. All right, let's see. In Avengers Endgame, we saw Thanos die within the first 20 minutes. Marcus and McFeely stated, the the writers, they are giving you their justification for doing that.
Because I Number 3 or number 4? Because I see it.
Number 3.
Yeah, I think you messed up with 3 and 4. I think your 4 is number 3 and number 4 is number 3. Yeah. Wait, no.
All right. Let's see. All right, so we'll do number 4.
All right. It's the one next in order, right?
Yeah.
So the writers basically gave their justification for doing that, because I know personally when I didn't look at too many theories. I wanted to stay away from theories. But one theory I said it would never happen. I said they are not going to kill the villain in the first 20 minutes. I mean, people are going to lose their
remember
minds.
that. I remember you said that. Yeah, I remember.
So,
and remember what I said? I said, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, because it's so difficult to do that when you build up a villain this big, this grand.
Yeah.
How do you do that? And so Marcus and McFeely stated, we always had this problem. The guy has the ultimate weapon. He can see it coming. It's ridiculous. We were just banging our heads for weeks. And at some point, the executive producer went, can't we just kill him? And we all went, what happens if you just kill him? Why would you just kill him? Why would he let you kill him? Marcus reinforced Thanos' agenda. He was done. Not to make him too Christ-like, but it was like, if I've got to die, I can go now. Do you guys buy or sell the explanation given by the writers?
Absolutely sell. Oh, go ahead, Baptist. I
Wow.
I was just going to say, I'll have to say definitely sell it, primarily because now I understand that, you know, some companies or some movies, whenever they show us the trailers, they won't necessarily give us everything and sort of leave us hanging or leave us guessing. I can understand that. However, the idea that Thanos should have been killed off in the first 20 minutes of the film, I would have to say that certainly wasn't the best way to go about it, because, excuse me, if I may jump ahead a little bit in regards to the movie, when it comes down to the fact that, and of course for those who didn't anticipate or doesn't know already, it's going to be spoilers, but the fact of the matter is, when the Thanos from the past came into the present, it was sort of like, what? I mean, granted, it was Thanos, but it wasn't the one who pretty much went through the snap. So it's not the same level of grandeur.
Yeah.
It doesn't have the same effect on you. It's more like, it's this Thanos.
It's not as personal.
Right.
Yeah, and I would definitely have. I'll try and wrap it up real quick.
Go ahead.
I would have to say, in regards to them killing him in the first 20 minutes of the movie, it really does take away from the story. It takes away from the actual strong, deep feeling that you want to have with the Thanos who actually who actually went through with the snap.
Right. So
what they
you would sell their explanation for doing that?
I would say definitely sell it. They really should have just had it. I sort of had this theory where I'll try and break it down real quick. I had this theory that I thought would have done a lot better in the movie, where the movie begins, the Avengers are trying to recover from the snap. They're trying to figure out how to get their lives going again. And suddenly, what's his name? Scott, or Ant-Man, appears, and he's able to sort of get out of the quantum realm and go visit the Avengers and say, I found this awesome way for us to go back in time and try and reverse all that took place. And my thinking was, as they were going back in time trying to recover the gems, in the present, they would start disappearing, and Thanos would notice it. It's like, no, they're trying to go back and they're trying to undo what I did. And,
But that would mess up the timeline really bad. Like, don't you think, like, the other MCU movies would kind of, like, get ruined if that happened?
Going back in time, trying to get the gems.
Yeah.
And as Thanos noticing them disappearing from his gauntlet, he's like, no, then he goes back in time, or the time stone hasn't been taken yet, so they're able to. He himself goes back in time and tries to stop them at multiple different periods, but ultimately fails. But he sort of, as he fails trying to stop them, he somehow, what's what we're looking for? The Avengers managed to bring him back, or they all managed to come back to the present time. to try and undo the snap, and that's when the final battle, would take place.
Mm-hmm.
Or the Avengers managed to get the gems and bring everyone back, and or if anything, that sort of grandiose battle would take place, and with the big three,
Right.
Thor, Iron Man, and Captain America.
Right.
And because everyone's still sort of hyped up from what already taken place, this grandiose battle would finally play out, and the Avengers would win.
Right.
And then after they defeat Thanos and everything, then they used the Infinity Gauntlet, use all the stones to bring everyone back. I think that would have had a much better ending
Than what they did.
Right.
So
than pretty much what they gave us.
So Josh, do you buy or sell their explanation?
I say that would be more of a theory or more of a story to actually buy into and to hold on to, rather than this, kill the original Thanos who did the snap and do all this jumping back and forth,
right?
And bring the past Thanos to the present. I would have to say the story was quite disjointed in different places.
Okay, Josh, do you buy it or sell it?
It was very disjointed.
I don't buy.
I would have to say my theory probably would hold a little more weight to it than what they actually put on the big screen.
Yeah,
what do y'all think?
I would say, you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say that. Thank you. I would say I don't buy it. I understand why I think they did it, because if they didn't do it, the way the rest of the movie wouldn't make as much sense. And I really think they're pushing the multiverse, and obviously, so I get that, but I don't really buy it because it was just. And I think more for me is because when I seen the scene, it was a big letdown. Like Baptist said, I mean, it took a while for me personally to kind of build it back up, because I thought that was that easy. Are you serious? I mean, even without the rings, I know he's damaged, but I mean, even in the comic books when he was dying, he was still very, very OP, overpowered. So I don't buy him just kind of laying down like some little kitten. And I mean, I don't buy that. I think that was really against Thanos and his character. But I mean, even in the movies, okay. Yeah. But what would they do? I don't know. I mean, I can't really sit and think what would they do any different compared to the show.
So
I buy it, and I'm gonna tell you why. I feel like it makes his character stronger in a way, because and it makes the story a little bit stronger too, because I feel like when they killed Thanos, they really felt that defeat, because they were thinking the whole time oh, we're just gonna go kill Thanos, we're gonna grab the gauntlet, but it was gone, and he was gone, and Thanos was gone too. He completed his purpose. He had no idea about. I mean, he probably had no idea about the multiverse and everything like that. But I think it makes it better because I mean, it was an Avengers story.
Let me just add. It's kind of hard to say that because Thanos, they were teasing, was a super genius level of tone about the multiverse. He knew about those theories. I mean, Spider-Man knows about these theories.
I don't think Thanos knew about the multiverse, to be honest.
I think that's
intergalactic kind of.
Yeah, I think that's hard to say. I think probably he did know. I mean, what we know of. I mean, but it's hard to say. Hey, the comic book movie Thanos versus or the comic book. Yeah.
But even the Thanos that they've introduced, the Russo brothers, says. I mean, he's a super genius level intellect. They're saying. I mean, the guy is.
But I mean, okay. Let me just put it this way: the Avengers. So. How do you not kill him? Would the Avengers fight him in the beginning and then lose again and then go back? I don't know. I don't know how that would make sense, to be honest. I feel like you had to kill him for the story to play out how they wanted to.
Yeah, I'm going to sell. I'm sorry. I'm going to buy it, and I'll give my explanation. Pretty similar to yours. When they start explaining, the guy has become omnipotent pretty much. I mean, the guy has all the power. He has all the stones. When you think about the story and where they could have went with this story, once he already has the glove, see, I think if we're going to grant this, if there were anything I would change, maybe don't have him snap his finger at the end of Infinity War. If anything, have him still collecting the stones throughout, and then he finally gets all of them, and then maybe you do something about that. I mean, but it's difficult because even in that scenario that I just gave, Once he gets the stones, how is it that they get it away from him? He sees you coming a mile away. Like you said in Infinity. I mean, how do you realistically take a character with that level power and make us believe? I mean, genuinely believe they dethroned Thanos. I mean, he has the power, so infinite power. I mean, there's no one going to be stronger than him. I mean, he has the Mind Stone, gets inside of your mind. Reality Stone, I mean, warps reality.
If I may say, Bro Joe, probably in a way, because even though he has the Infinity Stones, his mind and his will and all of that is not infinite. So he's still a finite being using a somewhat infinite power source.
That's true. But what couldn't he set up with with the gauntlet now that wouldn't prevent? I mean, he could set up a reality where anytime there's something that enters the atmosphere, I mean, automatic defenses come up, so he's prepared. I mean, how is it that you could write this kind of character? So I definitely buy it for that reason. I mean,
well, now that you said that, I do think. Remember the explanation he gave where he didn't even try to fight them? I mean, because he thought all is well, go ahead and kill me. I've done what I've achieved. So I guess in that sense, I see your point. And then remembering that, I barely buy. I just don't like him bowing down, and I don't know.
But isn't that Thanos? I mean, isn't it consistent with his? I mean, he has a goal.
I think he knew he wasn't
gonna
win. I think it was like most of the Avengers. I don't think he was like, okay, maybe it was just one of them. He would have maybe had a little fight.
I mean, and remember his reason. I mean, look at it. Look what he says to the Avengers. He says, I mean, the work is done. He says, I mean, it's over. I mean, he has no more. I mean, that was his great purpose in life. I mean, that's a good reason for him to be.
Yeah, you're right. My mind has changed, but I'm not happy about it.
Because he's not a mass murderer. He's not just going around killing for the sake of killing. He's purposeful with his actions. What Baptist? What do you think?
I'm not sure if y'all heard a lot of my explanation.
Yep, we heard it.
But did y'all hear, the theory I proposed as to what pretty much how it should have played out?
But how do you deal with the fact that he now becomes, I hate to use this word, godlike? I mean, really does have the power of everything in his hands.
Well, I would say in regards to this explanation and everything, in regards to the idea of him becoming godlike, his power is quite significant by all means. But in regards to the fact that even though he already completed the work, I still think if the Avengers sort of tried to go back in time and get all the stones, and Thanos tried to stop them from reversing his actions, I think if they played it out that way, sort of like this time travel or this time chase, as well as this, I think if they had more like a time chase and mini battles in different time eras against Thanos or against other villains and things of that nature, I think it would have had a lot more meaning.
Mm-hmm.
And then as Thanos was chasing them throughout the rest of those time eras, finally being sort of dragged into the present.
Well, but
well, I'm going to say this, sort of getting into this final battle, and then I think it would have been a lot more personal, and we would have had a lot more of a connection.
I mean, but think about. The fact that I agree with you. I thought, because you're right, it's not that Thanos with the emotional weight of everything that he did. I agree with that. But when you think about it, one, how is it that they're going to beat him all of a sudden? But I mean, he's going through different. I mean, why doesn't he just wipe them out at that point? I mean, how is that going to work?
Yeah, he has the time stone.
He has all. I mean, it's all the stones. What could they do that he couldn't easily reverse them? They put their suit on. They're vanished from existence.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. I buy it more for that reason. I guess one of my main reasons why I don't like it, not that I don't buy their explanation, but I don't like it is because even though at times it was rather funny in my opinion, but what it did to Thor.
And that thank you for bringing that up, because that's the other point. Do we really have that emotional weight? I mean, really, the 5 years allows for so much emotional weight. I mean, 5 years now, like, what do we do with our lives? I mean, would you have rather just taken that whole aspect out of the film? Because that part of the film really worked when you're dealing with the Avengers completely devastated. I mean, they get to Thanos. What do they do next? And that's when you go on this awesome adventure, Baptist.
Well, I'm sorry. Say your question again, man. I want to make sure
I was just. Are you willing to take away the emotional depth that the 5 years added to them not knowing what to do?
I would say half the 5 years take place. I would say this: don't kill Thanos in the first 20 minutes, but I would say let the Avengers sort of sit and try to deal with the reality of what Thanos has already done while he's still alive during those 5 years, and then as Scott Lang comes out or suddenly appears, Ant-Man, I would say automatically try and go back in time and take the stones, and the stones are still in existence in the present, and Thanos notices them start disappearing, and then they, pretty much it starts developing more and more into this.
I had seen that theory, and honestly, like, it does sound pretty cool. Like, not gonna it would definitely make it more what do you call it, like,
more interesting.
Yeah, more interesting and more like exciting and intense. I guess what you're trying to say. But
and I would say,
but how do you do it? How do you do that?
Yeah,
because remember, we're looking at it from a maybe comic book fan perspective. Like we would love to see that ultimate showdown. But remember, when we translate that to the film, and we're watching, and they really want us to believe that Thanos with the Infinity Gauntlet has all the stones. You want us to believe that they're going to get that far enough to go back in time without them wiping them out from existence?
Yeah, I don't think that. I think maybe you'd have to do it to where, I don't know, put him in some kind of prison, and then somehow, like Baptist said, Ant-Man comes back, and then you still go back in time.
How do you get him in prison? He takes the glove off.
No. I'm talking about before they killed him. After they arrived.
He has to go to court.
Well, I mean, that's something the Avengers have done before, but I don't know. I think that who would have stopped Thor, right, from killing him? I just don't see anybody stopping him from killing him. I mean, even the Hawk probably couldn't have stopped him. He would have had to get so, angry to be able to, and I don't think he would have got that angry because he loves Thor. So I just don't, especially this version of the Hawk. Obviously, he's not going to get angry like that. So I don't think there's really any other way to do it, even though another way like Baptist proposed does sound plausible. I just think with Thor's emotions, you're not going to get him to not be angry.
But it's kind of like the whole superhero disguise kind of thing. I mean, it's kind of like, well, wait a second. Superman has literally there's nothing different about him physically, and yet you want us to buy. I mean, we do for a moment because the story is so great, but you want us to buy that they're staring at Clark Kent and they can't recognize that that's Superman flying in the sky. Like, I mean, that's the kind of thing that we have with the Infinity Gauntlet. Once you've introduced this kind of threat, which is why really, although this wasn't done in the comics, they kind of had it destroy half the person once they've used it to do that, because it made it easier to confront him.
Well, look at when he had the stones. Okay, so to your point, he had the stones. And they did have more help, right? They had more help this time, and they definitely had Captain Marvel, and Wanda actually really stepped up her game. So, I mean, those are huge factors. But he had all the stones, and so they beat him.
And also, look at the characters they had left. They didn't have any sorcerers left. They didn't have any we had Black Widow.
They had Wong, I think.
Was Wong there?
Yeah, I think he survived the snap. Yeah.
Did he survive?
Nothing. They didn't ask for his help.
Well, I don't know if he survived. I mean, we.
If I have to say,
Wong wasn't there, so we.
A lot of they could have taken with the story, that the fact that they went about the way that they did just really made the entire story, the entire plot, really disjointed. And a lot of terrible adjustments they made to characters like Hulk and Thor really just damaged the story that much more, because
I think they strengthened the story.
I did too. I think they did too. I mean, from reading a lot of Avengers comic books, they do that, and I've seen some good graphic novels from them that from the Avengers, and they go way overboard. And so I don't think this is, as far as the multiverse and disjointedness and, the whole proverbial comedy, who's on first. I think Avengers gets that way a little bit. So, I mean, I think they did good. Like, I really enjoyed it. The end scene made that more palatable to me. What happened early on. It really did.
And I think, I mean, the 5 years, it really strengthened the Hulk's character. I mean, it really made it so that we can believe that he figured out how to join the two characters. And as you hear Hulk's, or Bruce Banner's explanation, or Professor Hulk's, he blamed himself for what happened.
You're right.
And so that's why he becomes Professor Hulk. That's why he tries to figure this thing out between Hulk and Bruce Banner. I wish they showed that more. But then we have a 4-hour movie on our hands.
Well, look, they're always cutting the Hulk short in one way or another. Just give him a movie already. Everybody's wanting a movie. That we've been wanting a movie. We realized the other ones was pretty. I mean, that stunk it up. But I mean, it's time to give him his own movie.
Well, one, they don't have the rights to the
Universal Studios.
Universal Studios has the rights to the
I mean, look, Disney's made of money. They could buy the rights. They use the character all the time. They could buy it.
I'll definitely disagree. I really think they destroyed. I would have to say they really did destroy the strong, awesome, epic God of Thunder that he was in Infinity War. And I really think that what happened with Hulk was they turned him into this real soy boy. They didn't take the fact that he's supposed to be this. Now, I'm not saying necessarily make Hulk just this big brute force, but they really took away from the fact that the Hulk really is this strong, powerful character who I really think he should have got a second. He should have got a second showdown with Thanos. I think he was.
I agree.
That was disappointing. I mean, Professor Hulk's in the comic books, but that was disappointing.
Yeah,
I really think Thor and Hulk deserved a second shot at the.
Let me challenge that really quickly before we get to our final topic. Let me challenge that. The Russo brothers did a really great job. The more that I think about it, it really was a big role for Hulk. Not only did that inner conflict between Banner and Hulk, which is a major conflict. I mean, two basically hate one another. They resolved that storyline. They closed that up, which is wonderful. Although I think they could have done that at the end of the film. They resolved that. Not only that, they give Hulk the honors of reversing the snap. He reversed he brought all the other characters back.
That's a good point.
So they did do a serious honor to the character, although it wasn't that brooding.
Yeah, not the way we thought.
They wouldn't have won if it wasn't for reversing the snap, because no one in there could have done it.
That's true. I mean, Iron Man would have already done. I mean, nobody. You're right. Nobody could have.
You would have been really upset if Iron Man died before the last fight.
I would be mad.
Yeah, very upset if he died before the last hour. Whoa.
I'm really happy. I mean, that's all I could say. I mean, we could nitpick, but I'm really happy.
I mean, I really agree with everything you guys said about the Hulk. I think they did Thor pretty good. I know a lot of people have been complaining about his character arc. I still feel like he's the Thor that we know deep inside.
Yeah,
but
I agree.
I think it would have been less interesting if he would have just been the same Thor from the last one.
You're probably right. You're probably right.
That's true. Well, I think someone gave a really great reason, Baptist. Maybe you'll agree with this. His way of dealing with his grief with grief was the comedy aspect. I don't know how he became overweight. But I mean, he had a 2-pack. If you notice, Thor did have a 2-pack. So.
I don't remember in any of the comic books. I mean, Thor's so old, he probably did do something like that. But remember, he's a notorious drunk, and in a lot of the comic books, at least the older ones. So it's not something that's far fetched that he would be a drunk.
Right.
Yeah. How he got that big belly, I don't know.
Well, he had a 2-pack. It was a big belly with a 2-pack.
No, I know. It was kind of like the older strong men a little bit, like back in the day. I don't know if you ever seen that show they used to have on ESPN way back in the day. The older world strongman. I mean, obviously it wasn't like not tough. I mean, not solid. But
I'm pretty sure he's gonna get another movie. I'm honestly pretty sure he's gonna get another movie.
I've heard about that. Yeah.
So any final thoughts on that?
No.
Okay. So let's move on to the last
Yes, the most exciting. Yeah.
Yeah. So a lot of people had a problem with this, and a lot of people loved it. So they're giving their explanation as to why Captain America, if you remember in Avengers Age of Ultron, wasn't able to wield Mjolnir. This is what director Anthony and Joe Russo stated. I think it goes all the way back to Ultron. I think everyone who's a Marvel fan in that moment where Cap tested the hammer felt deep down in their heart that he was worthy and that he could potentially lift that. And boy, wouldn't it be special one day if he did. And obviously, if you create drama around the circumstances of him wielding the hammer, then kicking Thanos' butt for 30 seconds after that, we felt like we could create a risible moment for the audience. In our heads, he was able to wield it. And he didn't know that until that moment in Ultron, when he tried to pick it up. But Cap's sense of character and his sense of humility, sort of out of deference to Thor's ego, Cap in that moment, realizing he can move the hammer, decides not to. So the Russo brothers pretty much said, Cap being so good in character, decides to not lift it.
I sell it.
Wow.
Because their explanation of them saying so they're saying that he could pick up the hammer since Ultron.
Yep.
But he lied to Tony Stark about his parents, so I felt like that was like the last thing. I don't know. Like I always thought that he couldn't lift it because of that, because he never told Tony Stark about his parents.
Some people said that. Yeah.
And after he passed through that, like now he's kind of worthy. So
yeah, because remember, Winter Soldier was before Ultron.
Yeah.
So let me say this, Alec, real quick, if you don't mind. Do you just sell their explanation, or you sell the whole scene?
No. The scene's amazing. I saw the explanation. I saw the explanation. I don't think. Yeah. The scene's awesome. Like for sure.
Baptist, do you sell it or buy it?
The scene.
Now, do you sell their explanation or buy or?
Well,
And I'll summarize it very quickly. They said in our heads he was able to wield it. And he didn't know that until the moment in Ultron when he tried to pick it up. But Cap's sense of character and his sense of humility, sort out of deference to Thor's ego, that Cap in that moment, realizing he can move the hammer, decides not to.
Okay, that part I would definitely say. That part I would say I sell that because take into consideration that if it's a humble and honest challenge, I don't think to actually to do something as simple as lift the hammer, I don't think Captain America would pass that up. So
you know what,
guys, I really do. I really do because
you sell it or buy it.
No. I buy it now, and here's why. Because I did remember that scene, and I remember watching that scene, and he knew. You could tell. Anyway, I could tell that on the character's face and his body language that he knew he could lift it. I mean, it's not just a hammer, right? It's a hammer, quote unquote, of the gods, and there's a backstory for it. So you have to be worthy. Okay, so it's like an enchantment, and it's by one of the greatest, quote unquote, gods of Marvel Universe. Thor's father.
Take into consideration that take into consideration that again, this is a genuine treatment. The enchantment was by all means placed by Odin and everything of that nature. If Captain America was trying to lift it, I mean, it looked like he was trying to lift it, and he was only able to slightly move it. There's a sense where yes, he is. I would say the hammer made it clear that he is a little bit. There's a sense of worthiness in him.
Right, I see what you're saying.
The situation doesn't dictate, because let's not forget, in the comics, the only time that heroes could actually lift the hammer was in a situation that was of most necessity,
right,
which was absolutely necessary, and the most worthy character or the most worthy person at that moment would be able to lift the hammer.
Right. Now,
so taking that into consideration.
Yeah, that's true, and I think he needed to lift it at the end. I really do.
Well, they're excellent.
But the fact that but I would say the situation that was necessary for him to actually, no kidding, lift it and use it was against Thanos.
Now, let me say I sell. I mean, I talked to Veckel about this earlier. I mean, I completely sell. So does Veckel.
I agree.
I totally sell the explanation. Here's a couple of reasons why. This is going to cut deep because I love the Russo brothers. One, they didn't direct the movie. They don't get to say why he wasn't able to lift the hammer.
That's
Joss
a good
Whedon
point.
directed
That's a
the
good
movie.
point. Yeah, that's a good point.
So
They're like, Joss Whedon.
I mean, I understand they say, well, either you're worthy or you're not half worthy. But you know what? They didn't direct the film. Joss Whedon hasn't commented on it, so I wouldn't give them the credit to be able to do that.
Right.
Not only that, there's this whole elevator scene at the end of Age of Ultron where Cap and Tony are arguing back and forth about not being able to lift the hammer after Vision easily does it. And he says, well, if you put the hammer on the elevator, the elevator will still go up. And they're like, elevator's not working. So
I had forgotten the Vision picked it up.
Yep. And that would totally undermine the weight of Vision lifting up the hammer if Cap was able to do it. So I am going to totally sell this.
Yeah,
He would have said something.
You're right.
He would have been like, "Oh, I could build it too." Like if Vision did it, like he could have been like, "Yeah, I could pick it up too."
But again, people are going to then. I mean, people are they going to say, "Well, Cap he's a humble guy. He doesn't want to take the spotlight," and so they'll say he was even joking with Iron Man. But that's for me is too much because I don't want.
Yeah, it's a stretch. You're right. Point taken. It really is a stretch.
So in regards to the actual scene where Captain America was indeed able to wield, not just merely pick it up, but actually wield and use some of his power. I think using some of his power, I think that was a little too much. But being able to actually pick it up and use it to at least hit Thanos a couple times, I thought that was pretty cool.
Remember the enchantment on the hammer is shall have the power of Thor. It isn't just picking it up. They get the powers of Thor.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. But Thor already has it in him, right? Because I know that in Thor Ragnarok, he was like, "You're not the god of hammers."
Oh, right. That's fine. Well, yeah, you're right. That's another thing. What happened to the cheese whiz coursing through his? I'm sorry, that was kind of funny. The cheese whiz coursing through his veins.
Cheese whiz, the blue cheese.
You're right. They didn't use his powers coming from his veins and stuff. That's interesting. I wonder why they didn't do that.
Well, there's an explanation actually, or at least there's one particular theory that I heard of or that I've seen. And that was this. Odin wielded what's called the Odin Force. It is a very significant, very high level, what's we're looking for, mystical, magical force that's present within him that gives him that godlike status that makes him Odin Allfather. So when Odin passed on, Thor being the direct bloodline of Odin himself, he would have the power to wield the Odin Force.
Yeah, well, remember.
Yeah, you're right. But that's plausible.
But remember the explanation Odin gave. Odin pretty much says it was just something to contain your power, like Wonder Woman's bracelets. He pretty much said it was a source to hold your power. It was never your source of power, which is ridiculous because then the whole Thor movie the first one was ridiculous because why get the hammer? Just figure out how to wield your powers. But
it was a test. Mjolnir has been a test for Thor a lot of times in the comic book, so it's kind of like his proverbial test.
Do I buy him not using it? I can't buy that. But as for the Russo brothers and their reason for it, I mean, look, it does an honor to Cap. I understand. Look, can I see Cap doing that? I go, I get it. But is he gonna lie? Is Cap a liar?
He has lied before. I mean, in the comic books, he has.
Then how can he be worthy?
Well, I mean, I don't think him. I mean, look, Thor's sin too. If we're gonna look at it from that aspect, he was still. It took Thor a long time before he lost the right of the hammer in the comic books. So.
I feel like the powers in the MCU have been pretty inconsistent with Thor. So is he like, does the hammer put the power? Does the Odin give him the power? Like, what is it?
Yeah. Well, and that's what happens when you keep redoing characters, right?
Yeah.
I mean, after 60 years almost, you just, I mean, it's hard to keep it fresh. And then people can go back and they could say, well, writer such and such. And, and it gets really complicated. Like, like Flash, right? It gets really complicated. He's a complicated character. So.
Well, and the Russos, they if you notice their quote, they said "in our heads," and that's the key word.
Yeah. That changes your theory then, and most of ours where he does say "in their heads." But again, who are they to say?
I know, and it still is a terrible explanation.
Until Lord Kevin Feige says it, then.
But Kevin Feige, even though he's I mean, he still is pretty. I mean, I love Kevin Feige. I mean, he's the president. He ultimately gets even a greater say than the directors.
Yeah.
Right.
But
Well, I feel
he
like
wanted us to believe that the kid from Iron Man 2 was Peter Parker, and they had, I mean, really, that they had no
I buy it.
idea. No,
I buy it.
they
I
had
buy
no
it.
idea that it was
You
Peter Parker.
no, I wouldn't say they have no idea. If you read what they
Well, how did they know Sony was going
no,
to make a deal
listen,
with
because
No, they
they
didn't.
write up a lot of this from the start. Do you know how they did big like Civil War in the comic books, and they write it years ahead if you read about it. So they really get into some war room, so to speak, and they write it years ahead. So
yeah, but they weren't expecting
here's the thing,
Sony to give the rights.
Kevin Feige, the way that he
Or did they?
Kevin Feige does things when it comes down to Marvel. I personally don't really. I'm not real favor. I don't really favor Kevin Feige all that much because he has a tendency. I really don't like him all that much. I think the guy is just. I think the guy a complete leftist SW whack job.
well, that's for another episode.
Yeah.
You're right. They
Yeah.
are leftists.
Yeah,
I don't
but
disagree with
Kevin Feige
Let's-
single-handedly produced and is the president of all the 22 Marvel films. I mean, how can you not recognize that achievement?
Yeah.
No, I don't think he denies that. I just think that I don't know. I mean, you don't
I agree
want
what
to
he's trying to
poison the
say.
well, but
Yeah, I don't. I hope they don't start pushing an agenda.
they already have, guys. The
started.
scene with Cap and the homosexual fellow, they already have started to push this.
Yeah.
Don't get me started. You already know, bro. Don't get me started on that scene, man. They're already pushing the agenda.
Yeah, that's also, and I want to say that's also when it comes down to what you mentioned earlier. That's the problem with constantly changing characters. You're right. That's what happens when the great writers who came before us, such as Stan Lee, Chris Claremont,
Right.
Jonathan Hickman, and the people like that. That's what happens when you change the very core stories that they've told, or a lot of the. That's what happens when you change the overall Marvel universe that they have created for the sake of political diversity,
Right.
of race, color, and ethnic groups, and sexuality, rather than focus on just telling good stories
Yep.
by pulling from the original source material. You end up with all kinds of nonsense and no point of reference, no standpoint, no consistency in the
That's
story. That's what happens.
Yeah, because
So-
they're confused. They think evil's good and good's evil. So I mean, to be honest, that's their worldview, right? So
that's interesting. We all pretty much. So who was the one that bought the quote?
I don't buy it really. I mean, I kind of was on the fence until we talked about it, and then I was like, no, I don't really buy it.
Okay, so I'm still going to sell it. Although I understand the reasoning. That I mean, I don't buy that.
Yeah.
I really don't think that's what Joss Whedon had in mind when he.
I don't think the Russos get to say if it was like if Ken Feige said it, then I would have been like taking it more seriously.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, I mean, I don't know the context of why somebody. I mean, it was just a question that somebody had, and it was their opinion. They did say in our heads, so I don't.
Yeah, that's true.
Baptist, you sell it.
Yes, absolutely. I saw that. I saw that explanation completely.
Okay.
I do not.
Now, were your reasons different than mine? I don't remember all the reasons.
Well, again, the reason was I honestly believe Captain America was doing his hardest, his genuine.
Yeah, me too.
Hammer, but he simply wasn't. Well, one, I do believe the enchantment really applies for. I do believe the enchantment will find an exception with the most worthy character, most worthy person in situations in which it is truly necessary. And of course, stepping up to a challenge, after drinking and having a party with your friends is not necessary.
Well, yeah, I mean, but look, that's what Thor does. No matter, I mean, when he is worthy, I mean, he's a drunk. Let's just be honest. I mean, they didn't really this movie, but that's Thor's character. It's pretty consistent. He's for the most part, he's a drunk.
Yeah, he may drink a lot, but the fact of the matter is, the overall persona of Thor is that he is worthy to wield the hammer and use it to fight for what's right.
That's true.
Again,
that's true. And usually he doesn't even lose that unless he becomes unworthy. So to your point, yeah.
But for Captain America, the situation really wasn't necessary for him to wield the hammer. So of course he might be able to nudge it, a little bit, give it giving us a sign that there is some worthiness deep within, but the situation really wasn't necessary for him to wield it. So,
and you're saying it was an in game.
In Endgame, it was absolutely necessary,
Right?
Okay.
Because by virtue of the threat they were facing, and of course Thor was having difficulty.
And Thor was almost lost.
Right. That's true. But it goes back to what you were saying, though, Baptist. In my perspective, is that when you change from these guys of yesteryear and our generation, Baptist, and you get really liberal, and you're a social justice warrior, and and you get into identity politics, it gets disjointed. It really does.
Like keep your politics out of the movies.
And that's what I think really happened, unfortunately, to Endgame, and that's why I think they came up with Fat Thor and Soy Boy Hulk.
You think so? I didn't see it that way. I saw Captain Marvel that way.
As opposed to, and her. Oh my goodness!
Yeah,
that's another episode.
That is another episode.
I could go all day about it.
I think it'd be good to have an episode on Marvel and their identity politics and
yes,
social
and
justice.
that brings my next and that be willing if you do the podcast later on this week or sometime next week.
Oh, you're breaking up.
Am I here? Y'all still hear me?
No. Yes.
Okay, now
I do now.
Now
yeah.
Okay. What I was saying is, Brojo, if you'd be willing, let's try and set aside a segment where we talk about identity politics, LGBT, Marvel, and feminism in Marvel. I think there's the article that I sent you. I think that is very key for us to talk about. That article is very very interesting and I think it holds a lot of weight to it. So we'll talk about that, next time. But again, in regards to what you were saying earlier, I forget who said it.
So there's a couple Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say yes, but you were right in regards to this is what happens where you change the very core elements of those stories that I think Jack Kirby was involved in it too. But Stan Lee, Chris Claremont, these really awesome, phenomenal writers who literally revolutionized the world with their comic book stories.
True.
So
all for the sake of politics and what happened.
So another fan theory that people have speculated was Cap wasn't worthy because he had fear of being alone, and so obviously I'm going to sell that. That was ridiculous.
How do you get that?
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, maybe.
Well, they did do it in Age of Ultron. You could see, but even though that wasn't really what was going on.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Another fan theory, and you guys can tell me whether I buy or sell this. One of the fans have suggested that the reason that Cap wasn't able to wield Mjolnir is because he had that dark secret of knowing who killed Tony's parents.
That's the one I buy. That's the one I buy.
Yeah, but was it a lie or was it he just withheld because he didn't want to? He didn't know how to say it.
It's a dark secret.
Yeah, like he didn't tell something that was really important to Tony Stark, and that's keeping something away from him.
Yeah, remember he's like a 90-some-year-old man, and he has wisdom far greater than most Marvel characters. So did he think that it just wasn't prudent, or I don't know? I'm just trying to go over my head thinking whether that was.
Well, I'm personally going to sell that explanation too.
Yeah, I do. I sell it. I mean, I just wonder.
I'm going to buy again. I really don't think Joss Whedon was thinking, "Oh yeah, because of Winter Soldier," and he's not. I don't think that was in his mind. I think it was just something nice that he did to point to or nod to the comics. I think that's all that it was.
Well, did you guys know, on a little different note, the Disney streaming service was at Disney Plus when it comes out in November? I think shortly thereafter, because I think it comes out the end of November, Avengers Endgame will be available.
Yep. All right, let me do this. Wow, that was the only one that we were pretty much all in agreement on. That's pretty funny.
Yeah.
And Veckel, I think Veckel said to me, he's just like, you know what? If that's what they were trying to show us with the storytelling, they did a terrible job. He's like, there's no way anyone in the audience would have ever gotten that from it.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, I see where he thought for a split second he could do it, but I mean, obviously, you know.
Well, here's another thing. If you notice when Vision lifts it, everyone looks shocked, but Cap doesn't really change his face. That could be
That's
one.
true.
He doesn't do Anyhow, thank you so much for listening to the Reformed Movie Nerd as we were going through some Reformed movie news from a Christian perspective. I was your host, Bro Joe Saved. You can, if you aren't already a subscriber, please subscribe and follow me on Spotify and on Apple Podcasts. Please leave a review. It helps out. You can follow me on Twitter at Reformed Movie, also on Instagram at The Reformed Movie Nerd. Alec, where can we find you?
You can find me on Instagram on Flasher0915 and on Twitter at Alec Duran1.
Josh, where can we find you?
Well, I'm kind of old, even though I know they got Dr. White eventually into Twitter. So it's taken me a little while. You just look up my name on Facebook. That's where you can find me.
Baptist, where can they find you?
Well, I hate to be a Debbie Downer for this one, but because I'm an active duty Marine right now, I want to practice good, operational security. Now.
Right, amen.
Right. Awesome.
Don't find me.
I would say if you're on Discord, you can find me.
Right.
Baptist 702, or you can find me in like the Carm, what's it called, the Carm server or Christian discussion, things of that nature. So.
Right.
I'll keep my secret identity for a little bit.
And if you guys check the description below, there will be a link to the Carm server for those interested in joining, and there will be the information to our Twitters, Instagrams, and YouTubes. Guys, thanks for listening to the Reformed Movie Nerd. All right, guys, this was pretty cool, I think.
The podcast you just heard was made using Anchor. Ever thought about making your own podcast? Anchor makes it really easy for anyone to get started. It's a one-stop shop for recording, hosting, and distributing podcasts. Best of all, it's 100% free. Sign up now at anchor.fm/new. That's anchor.fm/new to get started.